Daredevil Season 3 is the third and final season of the Netflix original show and tells the story of Matt Murdock, revealed to have survived after the Defenders, and is doing his best to try and integrate himself back into real life in Hell's Kitchen while once again going up against the Kingpin, who is now out of prison and is back to his old evil ways. A lot of the Netflix shows around this time, like Jessica Jones and Luke Cage, had seasons I did really enjoy, but they were definitely showing a bit of a downward spiral. After the Defenders, a lot of these shows were still alright, but in terms of quality and story and writing, they were a big departure from their first seasons. Except for Iron Fist, that did greatly improve in my opinion from the first season, and I did like the second season of that show pretty much. But I was scared that Daredevil was gonna succumb to that same fate. But thankfully, the creatives of this show still had some game. And season 3 of Daredevil is probably my favorite season of this entire series. And not just that, but this entire series of Netflix shows. It's my favorite season out of all of them. And one of my favorite seasons of television ever. Is just fantastic. The storyline of Daredevil trying to integrate himself back into Hell's Kitchen and to learn how to become Daredevil again, and how his Catholicism in his past is now reaching a point to where he's essentially at a point where he's going to betray everything he believes in, what he grew up believing in, and he is on a journey that might essentially lead to him actually killing Wilson Fisk and going through breaking that one code that he can't break, that he tells himself not to break, not to commit sin, not to commit acts that are sinful, and that whole torment between his Catholicism, his lawyer life, that's essentially gone at this point, and he has to earn that back, and to earn his friends back and be able to trust in the system despite, again, it being full of corrupt people. It is an uphill battle for Daredevil. He is at the lowest he has ever been. He essentially died and has nothing other than his blood family at this point, who his blood mother is trying her best to try and rekindle that relationship that she wanted to have with her son, who was taken by essentially the father because she was not doing well at the time. She was a very flawed person back then, and she knows it. And the show goes to great lengths to showcase her trying to improve herself for the betterment of herself, but also for the betterment of her relationship with her son, Matt Murdock. And I love these two characters and how they grow to lift each other up. It is a really inspiring story that connects back to Matt's father and how he essentially taught him to be strong as a child and to keep pushing forward. And bringing back Wilson Fisk as the villain here is one of the best moves that this season had to offer. This characterization of the Kingpin and how he's willing to do whatever it takes to have a firm grasp upon Hell's Kitchen and to be able to do this all for the sake of his wife. It is just fantastic. Once again, Vincent D'Onofrio killed it, and his antagonism against Daredevil and trying to form the city in his own ideology is just so much fun to watch, and so tense to watch as well, as you don't know what's going to go on in his mind or what he's going to do at a certain point. He is still as unpredictable as he was in season 1. In the action, once again, my goodness, it is beautiful. Especially the prison break scene where Daredevil has to essentially escape out of this prison after getting some answers from a few people there, and just him just wreaking havoc upon the prisoners there and fighting his way through this prison fight is just absolutely fantastic. The choreography is great, and the cinematography once again is beautiful. But another thing that I love that this show introduced is the character of Bullseye, and he is an absolute menace from his first scene to when he is introduced to be this perfect marksman who's good at shooting things point blank at the head and never missing a shot. He is essentially the Deadshot of the MCU, but a lot more vicious, a lot more rageful, and while he is also a person trying to reconnect back into real life, you can see how he is now being torn between two worlds, as he is in love with someone, but the Kingpin is having a firm grasp upon his life and is making him do things and questioning his morals, which is going to lead to a big conflict between both him, Daredevil, and Bullseye. Like, these two are essentially the good being Daredevil, the bad being the Kingpin, and the ugly being Bullseye. And how these two characters essentially are at a colliding point to where they're eventually going to have to cross paths with each other is so tense and so much fun to watch. Officer Nadim is another character that the show introduced, and I really loved his character and how he's essentially the only real good cop that is trying to do the best for this city, trying to expose the Kingpin for who he really is in the most safest way possible that he's able to do by the law. And his team up with Daredevil, and how these two characters are trying to team up together, trying to go up against Kingpin, and trying to get all the information they need to be able to expose what he's doing is just really interesting to watch. But the emotion that Charlie Cox brings to his character as Daredevil, Matt Murdock, and how he is torn between his life as Daredevil and life as Matt Murdock is again so much fun to watch, and I loved all the emotion he pours into this character. Whenever he's at his lowest point, you feel for him, and you want him to succeed. You want him to finally take down the Kingpin, whether it is by putting him in jail or in some cases going through killing him. And the final battle between all these characters and how they essentially have to go up against one another is amazing, and it is one of my favorite fight sequences in the entire show, and my personal favorite final fight in this entire series. The way this whole series was able to conclude here without that cliffhanger, this felt like a perfect series finale. But left with an interesting cliffhanger of Bullseye coming back, and now we have Daredevil born again, and so far I've been enjoying that, but man, it is no Daredevil Netflix. Netflix's Daredevil is fantastic. Not without flaws. I think the cinematography in Season 3 is probably the weakest out of all the seasons, and Season 2 have a few problems in portraying Elektra and the Hand, the villains, but for the most part, this show is peak television. Season 1 and 3 especially is peak television, and I was so emotional by the end of this season of all the deaths that has happened, all the torment that Matt has found himself being put through, in the conflict with him and the bad guys, and how Karen and Foggy are trying to do their best and on the side trying to help Matt Murdock try and go up against the Kingpin and try to be supportive despite everything that has happened. Just all around another fantastic season, and If you haven't seen Daredevil, the entire show, please go watch it. It is absolutely incredible. I'm going to give season 3 of Daredevil an A+. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment, and I will see you guys next time.